positive and light with advice. Build your tower. Happy.
I am Gentle Tornado, and I am on a mission to make positivity louder. Listen, welcome to Hyped Happy Hour, episode 52. Live Hyped is a brand I created. Hyped is an acronym that stands for happiness, inspiration, positivity, enthusiasm, and dreams. And if you look down at my logo in the bottom left, it is an H with a heartbeat in the middle because we never know how many heartbeats we have. So here, I'm just on an absolute mission to preach that we have one life and amplify the words within Hyped and interview incredible people and hear about their journey. I think the alpha is getting to know people that have accomplished things and knowing their journey. So on today's episode, I am joined by someone I stumbled into a Twitter space and heard him talking about his journey and what he's doing. And he wants to help people learn and grow and write. And I'm super excited for this episode. Taylin, how are you doing today? Thank you for coming on.
I'm doing good, man. You got so much energy, it's infectious. I hopped in here, I'm like, I'm pumped up now. The music, the intro, I'm like, let's go.
Thank you. That's kind of my thing, man. I've been blessed with this energy, and I want to give it to the whole world because, like I said, we have one life, and I think that's one of the most important things to lean into every single day. I started off straight away with what we're grateful for today. So what are you grateful for today?
Man, I'm grateful that I'm living in Panama right now. The weather's great. It's like plus 30 every day. It feels tropical, even though I'm in the city, just because it's got the tropical tree vibes. So you know what? I'm grateful for that. It's a good life.
Let's go. I absolutely love it. That is Panama. Wow. I've never had a guest tropical, so I absolutely love that. I'm excited. Dude, give the audience like a 2 to 3 minute. Who is Taylin Simmons? Give us an origin story, like from early to now. Give us the journey.
My God, okay, how do I condense this into 2 or 3 minutes? Okay, when I was a kid, always wanted to be a teacher. There's a story that my dad told me where he got a call a couple of years ago. He went and dug up my time capsule from when I was in preschool, and it asks you, the teachers were like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wrote like, I will be a teacher. I will drive my car and hang out with my friends. I'm like, oh, fuck, I guess I predicted it when I was in preschool. Like that's what I do. So I want to be a teacher, and then I sidetracked a little bit. I was a music producer, ghostwriting electronic music. I did that for like 10 years. That was the entire journey. I did full-time capacity for like 3 or 4 years. I then went and became a college teacher, did that whole stint for about 5 to 7-ish years. It's like 7 years altogether, 5 years full-time. And then I moved into what I call now the decentralized education space, which is Twitter. Like I'm still teaching, I'm still moving towards being an educator. I'm just now doing it on a decentralized capacity where I'm in charge of my own income. So that's the short Cliff Note version.
Wow, that's wild. So walk me through the journey of being a college professor, probably extremely underpaid, to now being your own boss, being where you're writing but still educating. And what does that transition look like?
It was pretty smooth, actually. You're totally right that college, at least I was working for a private college. I was quite underpaid. I only made after taxes like 30,000 a year, and I did that for like 5-ish years. I think in the last year I was there, I did get promoted. I got a raise based on the amount of classes I taught, and then they restructured my program and took all my extra classes away, and my raise went away in like 3 months.
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, damn. But even though I didn't make a whole lot of money, I always viewed it as a skill acquisition time of my life. Like it was never about the money. It was like, okay, I like my job. I enjoy getting up in the morning. I like the students. I'm learning how to be a better public speaker, a better thinker, how to hold a room, how to write better by creating curriculums. And I used it. That's how I looked at the job. Like every day I showed up, it wasn't just like, let's go to work. It's okay, let's practice and develop these skills. And I only felt the call to leave the job once I felt diminishing returns on those skills. Like there's always ways you could get better. But when I first started it, I was improving rapidly. By the end of the 5 to 7 years, it felt like it was easier. Like this isn't the same struggle. I need a new challenge. I want to take all these skills I've learned and leverage them in a new position. And that's what eventually led to Twitter, online decentralized education, just taking all those skills, but applying them to a higher paying, more freedom-based medium.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. I think the power of you leaning into you're getting experience while you were educating other people and learning and growing in that experience. I think that is incredible. Yeah, I absolutely love that. So we're going to get straight into happiness is the first word, one of the best words, but I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to read you my favorite definition of success. So let me share screen. Hold on. There it is. Okay. It's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It was, what is success? Laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate the beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Have you heard?
Good. I've never heard that before. There's some really good nuggets in there that I really like.
What
part about children is very cool.
Yeah. What do you think your favorite one was? Your favorite piece?
Right now, the part in there that was my favorite was the part about children. How you want to be respected by like the intellectuals or the adults, we'll say, but you also want to be admired by kids. Because I just finished. Well, I haven't finished it, but I've been going through some works by Dostoevsky, like Crime and Punishment and Brothers Karamazov. And they talk a lot, or the themes in that book are about how childlike wonder is one of the best like moral goods you could have. Reminds me of like Yoda from Star Wars. He's very childlike, but he's very wise. And I've noticed that in all my mentors and the people who have really impacted my life and who seem happy and successful is they're very smart. And when you talk to them in an intellectual capacity, they blow you away, but they're also kind of like goofy. They're not taking life too seriously. They're very childlike. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that part of that quote.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. And I think living life in that moment is where you can relate to kids, right? A lot of times, so I have three small children. So kids know when you're present. And so when you're present and you give them that fun or you're, that life to them, like it's just such a good dynamic. And so yeah, that also hits me very hard, obviously, because I have the kids and I actually just started a nonprofit foundation for teen mental health. So I'm very passionate about teenagers, especially and young adults. So yeah, it's absolutely incredible. The first question under happiness is, what is the happiest moment of your life so far?
I'm going to take a bit of a contrary, maybe answer to this one. I don't really think about it. Because I believe happiness is more of a process than a destination. Like when I was younger, I always wanted to be happier, but trying to be happier just reinforced the fact that I was not happy. So I like Viktor Frankl's approach to happiness. That is like, it can be ensued, but not pursued. So I was like, when I heard that really changed my life. So I just do things like I just push myself every day, do things I want to be doing and don't think about it. And I just find happiness is a great byproduct of that in general. So that's my approach to it.
No, I absolutely love it. And I think this will resonate with you, but I love telling people that happiness drives success. It's not the opposite way around where success drives happiness. It's happiness drives success. And you sound like, you've leaned into that since the beginning of your career, or even since you were an educator in the college. And now to being where you're at is like, you've leaned fully into happiness, which has led to immense success. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I would say so. It's I feel like when you're just doing things you want to be doing, you're more likely to be successful, like for sure.
Yeah.
Like whether it's something you're obsessed about, something you're wildly curious about, like, I don't know, maybe the most happy that I am is just whenever I'm focused. I find focus is the opposite of anxiety. And when I'm like truly focused and lost in something, whether it's a conversation, work, another person or a movie, like those are the moments where you're in the moment, you're happy, you're living. It's those I think are the best moments of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. So I'm a big believer. I preach gratitude. I do a gratitude day video every single day. I've done it for over 400 days and it's truly, improved my life and I'm teaching my kids gratitude. So this question really hits me hard. I'm interested to see is how do you believe gratitude contributes to the pursuit of happiness in your life?
I think it provides perspective. Because the older I get, you can look at anything and be like grateful for it, or you can kind of hate it. There's like pros and cons to everything. Even people like the people we love most still drive us kind of crazy sometimes, and you can focus on those aspects of those people or you can just like love them for the other traits that they have. And gratitude, I think, reminds us to take the more positive perspective. It's like a habit of, hey, no matter how much bad there is in the world, it doesn't matter if like my girlfriend's driving me crazy or my friends are irritating me. They're like great people. I'm grateful to have them in my life. And that's a trade-off that doesn't affect my happiness or my well-being. That's how I view it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's something interesting that you said there that I truly believe is that it's like a habit that you have to constantly work on because, obviously going through life, you're thrown just crazy shit happens to everybody every single day. And if you lean into gratitude in those moments, you could have the darkest moments, but if you're grateful for the core things in your life, like that could truly bring happiness. I mean, that's literally what I've done. Like anytime I get upset about anything, like I just literally look at a photo of my family and it's just instantly, but I had to do that for years of going through negativity to lean back into gratitude.
Dude, what you're reminding me of is when I was going through really dark times in my early 20s and I was, overweight, I was broke, felt lost, quite hopeless in a lot of ways for if my life could actually be good. I read the book A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and he just went through like some of the worst atrocities like of all time. And weirdly enough, it created this comparison where I'm like, okay, my life is good just because it isn't that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm like, I'm born in the first world. I have a family that loves me. I have great friends. I have like the freedom to choose what I want to do with my life. I'm not being worked to death every day in a concentration camp. And whenever I feel like life is getting kind of hard, although that's kind of extreme,
Yeah.
I just find when I compare my life to that, it just always seems good. And
Yeah.
that just acts as like a good reminder to be grateful that, we have a lot of things already. Like our lives don't need to be miserable because somebody messed up our latte at Starbucks. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot to be grateful for.
No, that's absolutely the truth. And, I was at VCon, which is a conference that Gary Vaynerchuk put on this last week. And, since I just started the nonprofit, there was a speaker named Scott Alverson, and he has a company called Charity Water. And I was like, I have to go see this guy speak. I don't know what this charity is. And it was unbelievable. Like his panel was incredible. And he talked about how he's helped 771 million people get clean water. There's still 40% of the world that doesn't have clean water. So 4 billion people still don't have clean water. And it's like exactly what you just said. Like I just can't, when I hear things like that, I can't complain about anything because it's like there's 4 billion people without clean water. Like if you zoom your perspective out and you're just like, I have nothing to be upset about. Like my life is unbelievable. Even if you're homeless in the US, like your life is better than not having clean water in some of these other countries. And I think, yeah, that perspective is extremely powerful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't even have anything to add to that. I just like 110% agree.
No, I love it. I love it. How do you balance pursuing your own happiness with considering the happiness of others?
I try to think about the trade-offs. Are there things that I would do that would make me happy, but maybe negatively affect the lives of others? Like this is more of a short-term happiness thing, but like imagine somebody who's addicted to drugs and they do drugs and they feel very happy momentarily, but it's ruining the lives of their family. It's not constructive for society. It's empowering the wrong people. So a question I like to ask myself, ethically and morally is just my actions in general, is what I'm doing constructive for me, for the other people in my lives, and for society as a whole? And you can't always make it 100% fit for all three, but eliminating the trade-offs as much as possible, I think, is the best that we can do. So it's something to consider, I would say, is how do we make sure that we're happy without negatively affecting the people in our lives?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think it's very key to be thoughtful in those processes and really take the time to be in that moment because, there are times to be super selfish and there's times to not. There's times to be selfless. And I think you hit that right on the head. This next question is interesting because I think like you already answered it, but I'm going to ask you like a secondary question. So the question is, how has your perspective on happiness evolved or changed over time? So you kind of talked about that with Victor's book. I want to know, like, since reading Victor's book and doubling down on happiness, like now, where has it taken you? How has your perspective evolved?
Yeah, Victor's book got me away from like pursuing happiness, which I think was step one. More recently, I'm thinking more about perspective and how it relates to happiness because of the way that we just hedonically adapt. Like when I was a college teacher, I remember saying, God, if I could just live anywhere and make 10K per month, I would be just like over the moon happy. Like I've achieved my goals. All of a sudden, I'm like living in Panama. I think I brought in like 40K last month, and I'm still like feeling the same way I did when I was a college teacher. So that goal like did not actually affect my happiness at all, and I just adapted to it. And now I want more, or I want like a nicer car, or I want like a bigger place. Like I don't know. Those are kind of like vanity examples, but it just the idea that we always adapt to whatever we get. So happiness has like momentary spikes and goes to baseline. And I think perspective is the way to raise the actual baseline happiness instead of like, oh, I'm going to buy a house and then I'm going to be happy forever. It's like, well, no, you're just going to go back to baseline. But if you can always like look at the bright side, be grateful, like those things will actually genuinely raise your baseline happiness every single day. And that can sustain as long as you maintain those habits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest part that you talked about was sustaining it right there. Like, because of what we already talked about with life's ups and downs is like the journey is everything. And so if you're happy along the steps of the journey and you put that in concrete perspective, it's only going to make the happiness that just in your entire life better when you get those things, right? Like maybe those things are the goal and you get there and it's cool and like now you have it, but like that happiness journey that you have is everything, so that you can just constantly be happy. And honestly, like being happy is kind of like what you said at the very beginning, like my energy is like, that is contagious. When you're a happy individual and you're just happy about your life, it doesn't matter. Like you can have the biggest house in the world, the best cars. If you're not happy, it doesn't mean anything. And so the journey of the happiness, I feel like is what you're saying is so important.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest realizations I've had over the past maybe month or so is that the best things in life are just processes. Like there is actually so trite to say that the destination doesn't exist, but the more you peel back the veil, you're like, it actually doesn't exist. Because let's say you want to be like jacked, you want to be in great shape. Well, that's not a destination, it's a process. Because if you stop doing what got you jacked, well, then you lose the outcome that you desired. Marriage, like people look at marriage as a destination. Like I'm married now, I'm done. It's like, marriage itself is a process. If you stop showing up, you're no longer married. Same with being like a father or a mother. If you stop showing up, you're not like a father anymore. Same with being a writer or any type of job you work. If you stop showing up, you're not that job. And once you can truly like internalize that, be like, holy shit, like I have to just do the same things every day because there's no destination. Like there's no like time when I get to stop and where I just stop working and I just relax. Like that's death.
Yeah,
Like
no,
everything else is a process.
absolutely love that, man. And for me, being a dad and a husband, the way that I view my life is I'm a husband first, then I'm a father, then everything else goes under that. And so, being a husband and having a healthy relationship is an absolute full-time job. And the payoff is like you're happy with your wife, but then you'll have moments where you're like, wow, like we worked through this and it's made us stronger. And now we're going to be happier together. And so that's why I resonate with what you just said. And then as a dad, it's like, you can never stop being a dad. And you see these moments where your kids do these things and you're just like, man, like this is the best. And it's like, my kid's only 5, or my oldest kid's only 5. And it's like, what's this going to be like when he's 18, 22, 30, when he's married and then he has kids. And so it's like, yeah, I absolutely freaking love that. That was awesome, dude. I resonated with that a lot. Okay, so let's get into inspiration.
Sure.
This is my favorite question on the podcast. I actually do micro interviews where I ask people this in public. What is one lesson in your life that you've had to learn the hard way?
What lessons aren't learned the hard way?
Exactly.
I just find in general, the biggest lessons are always learned the hard way. Like I don't want to say the word regret, but a lesson is usually learned when you're like, dang, I wish I didn't do that way. I found in relationships, actually, maybe this is the big one. I've found morals I've learned the hard way. And I didn't realize it until I read Dostoevsky, but he talks about how there's this intellect character who rationalizes everything with logic and is like, there's no God, so we can do whatever we want. And then these other people listen to him and they kill somebody. And they go to him and say, oh, we killed someone because there's no God. We can do whatever we want. And this intellectual type is just like mourning over the fact that like his words, although he didn't mean it that way, were taken that way. And then there's this character who is very childlike and very good. And he just does good acts and he helps people through service, and he gets everything he wants in life. And I took a very intellectual approach to my 20s, and a lesson I had to learn the hard way was that a lot of like the best things in life like can't be rationalized or intellectualized. It's like they just come from being and from like emotion and from just doing the right thing, like helping other people. Because if you try to like sometimes logically and rationally do the right thing, it kind of backfires. That's a very hard thing for me to explain because I'm still learning this lesson. But maybe an example would be that you're seeing someone in a relation, or you're seeing someone but you're not dating, but then you go and like sleep with somebody else because you're like, oh, I'm not officially dating, like we haven't made that verbal agreement yet, but that action would actually harm that person, and it could cause them trauma where they're like, I don't trust men, or I don't trust women anymore. It could ruin your relationship. Like rationally you could say that was the right thing to do because there's no commitment, but if you look at it from more of a feeling perspective, it actually caused like harm in the world and could harm more additional people. I think that's a lesson I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, that's an intense lesson that everybody has to go through. And, I simplify it down to just doing the right thing is always the right thing. And that's tough. It's really tough, right? I have to hold myself to like the highest level of ethics. And when I've done that, I just feel, I know that karma is so practical, and I don't know when that's going to come back, but I know it's going to come back.
Yeah.
And seeing that happen, over this last year of my life, of just the things that I'm accomplishing and things and the relationships I'm creating, the situations I'm in, are like, that could have been karma from 10 years ago of me doing something kind for someone. And, I view kindness as just a massive superpower, and it's just slept on. And when you can show someone kindness, the look in someone's face when you're kind to someone that's not kind is worth the entire thing, because you could completely change someone's life when you show them kindness. So that's why I really resonated with what you just said. That was awesome for sure.
Kindness, forgiveness is a big one too. I think there's an argument to be made that today's world needs a lot less judgment and a lot more forgiveness.
Yeah.
If you think about what social media has done, we now judge people by what they say as opposed to what they do, because we don't see what they do.
Yeah.
So everyone is very quick to like jump down everybody's throats and cancel them and just be like they're essentially trying to like ruin the person's life as far as they can go without killing them.
Yeah, no, seriously.
It's crazy.
One quote that I live my life by is, don't talk about it, be about it. Especially now that we're in this society that you just framed. It's like, I'll just show you. I don't need to say anything. I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do every single day. And I'm going to show up, which leads into my next question is there a particular quote or mantra that serves as a source of inspiration for you?
There's a few. I like, who's this from? I think it's from a famous, maybe it's from, I can't remember. C.S. Lewis, I think, is who this one's from. It's like, it's something along the lines of, day by day, nothing changes, but when we look back, everything is different. And I think that's a really like profound quote about just processes and habits and small incremental changes over time. Because like truly, if you just like look at maybe a week, unless you have a big life moment in a week, nothing really changes. But I look back over my life, like from 5 years ago, I was still like just starting as a college teacher. Never would have thought I'd be here today. Like even a year ago, I was also still a college teacher, wondering if what I'm doing now would ever pay off. So like in hindsight, every single thing is different, but like on a day-to-day analysis, it feels like nothing changes.
That's extremely powerful. That's extremely powerful to live by. And I think the most powerful thing for me would be that, that we're in this rat race. And I read this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry that literally changed my life. And I don't even speed anymore. That's how much it changed. And I just slowed down everything, and I lived in the moment. And especially with my kids, being in that moment it's hard because every day, we're doing similar things. We wake up, we have breakfast, we interact, I go do this, then they go do whatever. And then it's like the day's done. But when I leaned into slowing down and living that moment, I think it creates more moments. And then, like you said, you can look back in like just a year. I mean, especially with having kids in a year, I can be like, holy shit, like what did my kid, like, what my kids did this late year is insane. In 5 years and 10 years, it's just going to keep compounding.
That's fascinating. You're making me excited to one day have kids. It sounds literally like a trip. That's it
Yeah.
sounds like a crazy trip.
It's wild, man. I nothing will prepare you. Nothing will get you ready. You could read 1,000 books. It
Yeah.
literally doesn't matter. And I like to tell this
Yeah.
story because this was something that definitely transformed my perspective. My middle son Blake he's almost 3 now. He basically didn't sleep from when he was 3 months old till 2, and he would wake up every single night and he would cry. And you know, when he turned 1, we had my third kid. So my wife was with my third kid. So I would go up and go to his room and soothe him back to sleep. And it was an every night thing. It was like 1 a.m., 3 a.m. It might have been 11, 1 a.m. and 3. It could have been 3 times a night, right? And so I used to wake up at 4 a.m. And so that was tough, right? I was doing pretty manual labor job. And I would always get upset. I would always get angry. I would always get angry at him about, why are you just waking up? And now I can't sleep. And now my days can be messed up. And then I was like, I need to flip my perspective. I need to be grateful for the fact that 1, I'm his dad. 2, that I get to go up and spend this time with him and soothe him back to sleep, that I'm going to be able to remember for the rest of my life. And that actually fueled me to have more energy the next day. It didn't matter if I had to go up there 3 times.
Wow.
And I switched from I have to I get to. And something so simple like that has helped me throughout my entire life.
Nice. That's truly beautiful. I was going to ask you, what was like the one thing you didn't expect about parenthood that took you the most by surprise? But was that one of them? Just not knowing you'd actually be awake all night.
Yeah. And honestly, with telling you that my favorite quote was "Don't talk about it, be about it." Like, that is really you have to live that when you're a parent, because they are so observant. The kids are so observant of what you do and what you say. And so it's another level of self-awareness. And my wife has driven self-awareness into me since we got together, and has helped me change my life. But that next level of self-awareness, I would probably say that is like, I've heard even my parents tell me, it's important what you say around your kids. It never dawned on me until I had my kids, and my actions are 10x more important than anything I say. And, I take that as such a responsibility, the way that I treat my wife, the way that I treat them in front of their brothers, and they're not even, 5, 3, and 1. And so it's like, when they get older, it's going to be even more important. So that's probably what I would say.
Wow. Well, that resonates because I think about when I was growing up, and my dad, he was never in like bad shape, but he was never like jacked or in like great shape when I was growing up. And I found that as I've gotten older, I've always wondered why I never strove to be in like amazing shape. And I think it's because my dad like unconsciously set the standard. I was like, oh yeah, he was never in like great shape, and that was just like the standard. Where I think if he would have been like just completely jacked all the time, always hitting the gym, like, by action, not just by telling me you got to be healthy, you got to do sports, I probably would have instilled that more as like a piece of my identity, instead of having to learn that lesson like later in life. So I can imagine when you say that actions are like so much more important than words, like you never want to say something and then contradict it with what you're doing to your kids. Like I can imagine that would be confusing.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Absolutely. And they just know. It's wild that they know. Their self-awareness is 10x because they don't have these other exposures to the world like we all have. And so that's where their focus is. And like the best example is, I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm working out before the kids wake up. Then my kids wake up normally like 6 a.m. They're very early risers. My wife's still stays sleeping. And like, that's something I'm going to be able to refer back to, of like, they know I'm out in the garage working out. And so that's just teaching them the level of commitment you have to commit to yourself, to anything. It doesn't even have to be working out. Like, it just be that I'm doing something for that hour at a time that most people don't wake up. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I would prefer to sleep in till 6 until they wake up. But this is what I need to do to be at the best, to be my best self. And I know that those things are going to pay off 10x in the future. Because like the simplest thing I can say is like, I hated doing yard work as a kid, like fucking hated it, but I'm going to make my son mow the lawn. Like, cause I know the lessons that taught me. and like where that took me in my life. And so I was like, you think about that stuff. Anyways, I could go on forever. I fucking love my kids. I love being a dad. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Amazing.
I'm pretty excited to hear your answer to this. Can you share a specific moment or event that sparked a significant change or a transformation in your life?
Yeah, this is such a weird one, but it was when I was walking home from college one day. I still remember I was on like a busy highway crossing over an overpass. There was cars ripping by in rush hour, and I was on the phone with my mom, and I was complaining to her that I was broke and I was going to college and life just kind of sucked. It's like an early 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, you're not a rich doctor like everyone else who can just sail around all day on their yachts. So you're gonna have to go and like go work and like earn your keep." And it like just gave me so much cognitive dissonance, because I remember just being like, if you're a doctor, how are you on a yacht? Because wouldn't you be working? And like it like literally got my gears turning so hard. I'm just like, wait. So we have this cliche like cultural idea that all rich people are just like evil smoking cigars on yachts. And I think those people exist, but if they're not doctors, then who the fuck are they and how do they make the money? And I like didn't understand it at all. And that's what actually led me down the rabbit hole to like look into investing businesses. And I learned about like the quadrants of, investors and having money work for you, and how if you own the piece of a business, then you get equity, and you need to like build something that way if you want to be rich. And that is like probably one of the biggest changes that happened, but it only happened because my mom said something that I would look back on and say was so ludicrously wrong that it made me question everything.
That is incredible. I'm so excited. That's the first time I've ever asked that question. I restructured some of my questions, and because the last podcast I had with this guy named Trevor, we talked about moments in our life, and it was so powerful because I think I know there's so many moments in everybody's lives where you can fall back on, and it could be, there's hundreds of moments, but there's 3 to 10 moments where you can always fall back on and be like, man, I remember maybe I was at my darkest time, maybe I was at my highest time, and you can pull, for me, it's gratitude, but you can pull so many different emotions from it. And I just so I'm so glad that question brought that story out, because it was amazing, man. And the fact that you were just like right away, that's where I was walking in college. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
There's only one other one I can think of that was maybe that crazy, but this one is more of like less of a funny one and more of like a dark moment I've grown to appreciate. Was back when I first graduated from college, I had to work at a post office to pay my bills while I was trying to make it in music. And I sold a bunch of stuff online and I had a bunch of debt. And long story short, I just had like a bunch of businesses fail, and I like almost had to claim bankruptcy in my early 20s. Like I was so close to it. And I remember just like coming home, lying in bed. I was like, I'm overweight. I might have to claim bankruptcy. I work at a post office and can't make any money, even though I'm out of college. And I was just like so depressed. I think I actually cried. Like I legit was like, my life is so fucking bad. I actually cried, and it felt so dark. But what it showed me was that, pain is really good at instilling change. Like it's really good for that. And I would rather have a moment like that where I have like you finally hit the bottom of the ocean or whatever. You've sunk to the bottom and it's time to float back up because you've had enough pain. I'd rather have that than be like a little uncomfortable with not enough pain every single day to instill the change that I need. And it's caused this crazy thing that makes people think I'm totally insane. But sometimes people will message me on Twitter and they're like, my life is terrible and all this stuff is happening. I'm like, that's fucking great.
Yes.
And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like, because you're at the beginning of an inspiring story and you finally have enough pain to actually fucking change.
Yes.
Like, thank God you can now start like your new direction because you felt enough pain. Because without that pain, you probably would never have changed.
I absolutely love it. And I think when you're at the lowest point in your life is when everything becomes the clearest. And that is something that is like wildly, is just that thought alone is insane. And you don't know until you've hit that bottom, but it's like your whole life is completely clear because
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, you're literally at the bottom. Like you most times can't get worse, and now it's only up.
Exactly. There's the perspective we were talking about. There is the
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so positivity. I literally am a positivity maxi. I make positivity louder is my thing, and
Mhm.
I love just the general definition of a positive mindset is focusing on the good in any situation. And I think
Mhm.
that people think about toxic positivity, and I'm just like, yes, that is a thing where you can be too optimistic, where you're not real, but positivity in general is so powerful. So, are there any specific practices or habits that you've adopted to cultivate positivity in your life?
So another one I don't think about too much, because I do agree with your point that you can be like toxically positive. I think that that's more like maybe naivety,
Yeah.
where you're not able to accept the lessons. Like I do think it's important to sometimes actually be like, this just sucks.
Yeah.
Because where positivity becomes toxic in my mind is if you're not letting yourself feel negative emotions.
Mhm.
Like there's this quote from Mark Manson. It's something like, um, this the need for more positive experiences is a negative experience, and the acceptance of a negative experience is itself a positive experience. And I have thought that was one of the most profound things I ever heard in my life. So what we're saying about perspective, maybe perspective is the one I use most for positivity. So I look at it more as gratitude than positivity, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do think it is better to, believe that you can do something within like a certain realm of possibilities. There's some realities we probably have to face, but it's better to believe you can. It's better to have tried and failed than to not have tried at all. Knowing that failure is just a part of the process, and that negative emotions are just a part of being human. Like just because you have a bad feeling doesn't mean you have a bad life. You can internalize those lessons and really like sit with it. And I think there's a lot of strength that comes from being able to actually feel a negative emotion. Like it takes courage to be like, I'm going to sit here and be sad for a little bit and allow myself to feel that way, knowing it will pass.
Yeah, absolutely. And embracing that. I agree with you as well as that goes into so many different things, self-awareness, perspective, like you said. I, there's this thing called the Lasada ratio that proves that it takes 3 positive emotions to 1 negative emotion. So that's how powerful negativity is. So that's
Yeah.
why I've amplified in my brand, especially positivity. Can you tell me about, maybe a certain moment in your life where you were just overwhelmed by negativity, or maybe someone around you was super negative, where you had to lean into being
Mm.
positive, or you just had to be grateful, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that? Maybe there's one time or a couple times where you were around people.
Yeah, I find I used to have a lot of friends who I would say are more like default negative or default pessimistic, where
Mhm.
everything just sucks, and I'd call them more like victim mentality. That's how I would describe it, is
Yeah.
people that do not take responsibility or like feel empowered in their own lives. I did used to have quite a bit of friends like that, and the biggest tip that I have is, unless you have a majority of optimists, like you can't win. Like if
Yeah.
like most of your circle is like the victim type, they're gonna bond over it. And you can like you'll be the one that they're just like, you're like naive, you're delusional, you're like too happy all the time. But if you can find friends where a majority of them are taking responsibility, like moving forward, thinking of things in a positive light, not talking about people in negative ways, that's going to rub off on you. So I think the solution is really just to find better groups of people to be friends with, which can be scary if all of your friends are that victim mentality. I won't take that away from someone that at some point it's like, well, if I walk away from these friends, I don't have any. And that's a scary reality to face. But I think it's worth it because you'll have better friends in the long run. You'll be happier in the long run.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's something that's a lesson I had to learn the hard way for sure, because I'm such a supportive person. So I had so many friends that abused that. And I think to the extreme of sometimes you have to eliminate family. You don't have to eliminate them from your
Yeah,
life, but you definitely have to minimalize how much time you spend with them. And that could literally be
true.
your parents, your grandparents, somebody super close. And there's so much power in that when you lean into yourself, and then you start surrounding yourself with people that are optimistic or positive or motivated, whatever you draw inspiration from. And it's tough. Like it is one of the hardest things, but when you do it, the payoff is unbelievable. Even like you said, like if you're at a point where you have no friends, it's dark, right? That can be really hard, but you're probably going to meet 5 to 10 people that are incredibly on the same path as you or same mindset as you. And I think that's powerful.
True. Actually, what you remind me of is especially in high school, I think I bonded with people over negativity and being the victim. And even though those people you bond with are also negative, so you might view them in a negative way, if the only way you know how to bond with someone is over like negativity, hate, fear, like more like tribalism, it doesn't matter if you like get away from those friends, because the only way you know how to bond is by like being negative. And I think a lot of people don't even realize that they're like this. Like I've worked jobs where you're in the lunchroom and everyone is just like bonding on negativity all the time. And you're like, man, I haven't heard these people say a single positive thing this whole time. Is this all these people like bond over? And it makes you really wonder. So I think it's important to also take responsibility and recognize in ourselves, are we feeding into this negativity and then playing the victim and saying that we're not the negative ones? Like we need to take responsibility and learn better social ways to bond in more constructive ways too. So that was a lesson I had to learn in my early 20s.
That's huge, man. And I think that it takes extreme courage to be positive in those situations and to show people that it's okay, that you can definitely be positive around negativity. And I've had moments like that where, I've had some crazy shit happen in my life and I'm still positive, and that could inspire someone that might be extremely negative to be like, wow, I've been negative this whole time. I'm surrounded by negative people. And I think that's what's so cool about going back to the success definition is it could take one moment of you being who you are and, let's say, preaching positivity or whatever you preach, that could change someone's life forever. And I think the power in that is actually like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. We don't realize how much our actions actually affect people and what they'll remember. We probably think they remember different things than they do. We don't realize the small things that actually impact our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So enthusiasm. So my energy, like you said, I literally love enthusiasm. I'm gonna be that dad when my son scores a fucking touchdown and I'm gonna be screaming because I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about me. And I only got one life and I only got one time to scream at my son's 6-year-old fucking football game. So listen, I love this. I think everybody needs a little bit more enthusiasm in their life. It's okay to be excited when you accomplish shit. What are 3 things right now in your life that you're obsessed with?
Obsessed with learning to be a better storyteller. Always been obsessed with fiction. I just finished watching the series Arcane and I'm like still gushing over it because it was so freaking good. I'm just like, the storytelling was good, the pacing was good, the character development, oh, it was so real. And the way it like totally subverted my expectations. I get like pretty nerdy over like that kind of stuff, whether it's video games, movies, TV shows. So that, and getting more obsessed in decentralized education as well, and just what it might look like. It's a very new avenue for me to explore, launching digital products, maybe eventually a digital online school, how best to like educate people, how to make them remember things easier, how to take ideas and explain them in like novel ways. I don't quite know what it looks like yet, but I think my life's purpose is found somewhere in there, a combination of all those things, and I'm just exploring it a little bit more every day to get more clarity.
I love that. I think, the online school, it's crazy. It makes me so happy to, let's say, have this interview with you and just watch the journey. I find extreme happiness in that and watching people win. What are like a few activities or hobbies, or maybe just one, that ignite your enthusiasm, and why? What is something that gets you just so excited in your life, and why is that?
Um, Probably like good fictional stories I get really excited about. Like they tend to be like video games. Like my buddy Dakota and I were watching the new trailer for Marvel Spider-Man 2 came out last night. And I was just watching it like a kid. Like maybe that's why I like it, is it makes me feel like a kid again, where I'm just like, wow, like that's so cool. It's like surreal and the characters are so good. That stuff always gets me excited. And maybe to the opposite effect, I find sitting in silence gets me really excited too. I'm one of those like introverted types that thinks a lot. And if I don't just let myself sit and just like let my mind sort through its own shit, I get kind of like bogged up. It's almost like I'm a pipe that has too much gunk in it, and I have to just sit there and let it like declog itself. So that's one for sure.
No, I love that. I
My
love that.
roommates are laughing at me for that analogy.
I mean, sometimes you gotta let it out. Sometimes you gotta let your thoughts think, you know what I mean? Or else you can fucking explode.
Yeah.
So I love that. Listen, this is the last question under enthusiasm is something that I've kind of already touched on, but you know, like I said, my energy is super contagious. And I think that that's so important in life when you get excited and you use enthusiasm to elevate other people. So this is a very good perspective question that I want to ask you is how do you leverage your enthusiasm to motivate and inspire others in your personal or professional life?
Well, I think it is contagious, like you said, for sure. But I would say anytime we're trying to inspire someone, you seem to already have all the answers to this one, which is like you just got to lead from the front. You have to do it with actions. You got to show other people that you're excited and enthusiastic about what you're doing and have them follow along. Like I heard this quote, I think it was from Dan Coe a little while ago. He goes, "To be a thought leader, you have to lead yourself." And it's like so obvious that I'm like, how did I never think of that before? But if you can't like get up and live by your own philosophies, your own values, like when things get you excited, like go and pursue them, go and do them. Like no one else is going to want to join you or believe that it's a good idea if you genuinely don't think it's a good idea and pursue it without their permission. Like the without their permission is probably the biggest part. Like if you are into something, like you have to just like be like, I don't need someone else's permission to do this, to explore this, to start this. Like just do it. If you're excited, like other people will join you.
Absolutely. I love that, dude. Do you know who Eric Thomas is? He's a motivational speaker. Have you ever seen him?
I don't think so.
So he's unbelievable. I'll have to send you a video, but he's crazy energy and he's all about knowing, you know, who you are and being powerful. He spoke at VCon and he shook the arena up. He, you know, and one of the most important things that he said in the whole speech, you know, it was like a 30-minute keynote. He said, you know, that Gary V, he landed at 12:30. His speech was at 2:00. And he said, Gary called him and was like, I'm sending a limo for you and your wife to come by 1. And he's like, no, no, no. I'll drive myself. I'll drive my wife so we can be together. And he was like, well, we want you here by 1. And he was like, well, that's what you want. That's not what I want. And so he's drove him and his wife because he was like, I don't want to be in a car with a random stranger if we die for the last moment to be with my wife and a random stranger. And, you know, I think in that moment, it flew over so many people's head. But what he was talking about was leaning into exactly who you are because he kept saying, I know who I am. You know, it doesn't matter if Gary wanted him there at 1, he'll show up by 2. Like he'll be there by 2 because he's professional. It might be 1:45, but that's what he's going to do because that's the level of stature he's already accomplished. And because he knows who he is, and he got to that level because he's embraced exactly who he is. So what you just said was exactly like that. When you know who you are and you know what you're excited about, that's the action of you leading by example that can elevate other people. It's like, holy shit, like Taylin is exactly this and he's doing exactly this. And that could elevate someone to a level that they didn't even know was possible.
Yeah, I love that story, dude. That's huge because it's hard to authentically be yourself because you're gonna ruffle some feathers.
Yeah.
People mean that in like a polarizing way, like you're gonna tick people off, but sometimes like who someone else is and who you are, just even if you love each other and you have like mutual respect for each other, in that moment, it's just uncomfortable. Gary's like, well, we need you here at 1. Well, I'll be there at 2. It's like, well, somebody's winning this one. There's no compromise. And sometimes you got to tick some people off. But, you know, the benefit of this, if you look at the perspective, is you do tend to get respect for being you, even if you tick some people off. So if that's holding someone back, then maybe that'll help a bit.
I love it. I love it. All right, Dreams. This is a 1 question is a segment. And I literally love it because I always thought, you know, when I came up with this question, it was super impactful for me. I always thought it was gonna be like too hard. I was like, I don't know if the guests are gonna be able to, or they're gonna open up enough to answer it. But everyone has just leaned into it, and I think it's more powerful for the guests than me. So I'm just gonna ask you what the dream that you have for your life is, and I'll tell you my dream first that I have for my life, and then I'm just gonna, off the top of your head, I want your dream. So I'm Gentle Tornado. I am an honest, enthusiastic, and successful man that will inspire others to live their life through happiness.
Love it, man. I feel like we're at like an AA meeting or something. It's like, I'm Taylin Simmons. I'm going to inspire the world through created works of art, which is true. I want to put more like
That was,
employment speak is.
I mean, if that was
I
the
just
mic
wanna,
drop moment, I mean, we can just close the podcast down. That was fucking good, to be honest.
yeah, dude, I had to realize maybe this has always been clear to me, or it's just my way of seeing the world, but I truly think that fiction runs the world. I have learned more from Harry Potter and Spider-Man than I personally have through a lot of like religious texts. And when I look through what's happening in the world and people aren't turning to religion, especially the younger generation as much, I think they need empowering stories that get them inspired and give them hope. And I would love to be the person in the future who finds a way to create, whether it be stories or content or art, that people can just lose themselves in and they actually learn lessons from. Kind of like how Black Mirror does it, but in a dark way. That you
Yeah.
watch Black Mirror, you're like, holy shit, that really made me think. It's like, yeah, that's the job of good fiction, is to make you see the world differently and give you like a new story to integrate into your life. And that's ever since I was young. There's always been something about that that has been like a dream of mine, and I just don't quite know yet how I'm going to bring it into the world.
I literally love that. I mean, I can resonate with Lord of the Rings. For me, was like I learned so
Yeah.
much from that. Like so much of just their journey, being a supportive friend. I mean, there's so many lessons when you really zoom out, when you read a story or you watch a movie. There's so many lessons that if you're really committed to taking in that moment that you can learn from, that can change your life, like you said. So I am excited for you. I know that you're gonna fucking do it and you're gonna crush it. And who knows when that's gonna be. I'm gonna share my screen. This is my favorite poem, and this means everything to me. And I love to share it with every single guest. It's called The Dash. It says, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on her tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of her birth and spoke of the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that she spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved her know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash.
Amen.
Yes.
That's really good. That's really good. That's like that's very deep, taken off of like such a small everyday thing that people have seen a million times, but probably never thought about.
Yes, absolutely, man. And it's like the legacy, or just what did you want to be remembered by? I mean, so powerful. It is so powerful. And that's why I have the heartbeat in the H, man, because you literally never know. Today could be our last day. And that's where gratitude just comes in. It is everything.
It's true. The last time I went to visit my grandpa, I was driving to see my parents, and I can either go right and I can see my grandpa's house from the road, or I go left and I keep going to my parents' place because my grandpa and my parents lived out of town from me. And I looked at my grandpa's place and I was like, I'm kind of in a rush. I'll see him next time. And I turned left, and 3 months later, my grandpa randomly passed away. I never seen him again.
Wow.
And that's something I have to live with the rest of my life, was that I could have seen him, but I'm like, I'm in a rush. So next time, but that next time was taken away from me. So I think about that all the time, is you never know, as you say.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a moment for sure that you can lean on forever and make you a better person for sure. Okay. So how we wrap up the podcast is you get to ask the audience one question, and then you get to leave them with one final thought. So it can be any question about anything and one final thought about anything.
Question. This is one I used to ask myself a lot, because I used to say to myself, like, what if I fail? But I reframe it now to like, what if I succeed? So that's what I would ask the audience. Like whenever they say like, what if I fail? I'd say, well, what if you succeed?
Yes. Love it. What's your final thought you want to leave them with?
Final thought is that, probably that the world just needs more hope. I think nowadays, like, hope would actually solve a lot of the world's problems. People need to believe that we're working towards something great, that they have hope that their lives can be better, that the world can be better. And the more people that have hope and actually act that out in the world, the better the world will probably be.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing for sure. I agree with you, man. This has been Hyped Happy Hour, episode 52 with Taylin Simmons. Absolute amazing human being. I'm so grateful for you coming on. Thank you so much, man. Really.
Yeah, thanks, dude. This was one of my favorite podcasts I've ever been on. You're a vibe, dude. You're an energetic vibe. I'm
Thank
pumped
you,
for the
man.
rest of the day now.
Let's go.
I came
Thank you.
off of all this like slog of like just total deep work into this energetic podcast. You know, man, you lifted my mood today when I was kind of down in the dumps.
Let's go, dude. Right into your retreat. You're going to crush it. Listen, for anybody listening, do me a favor, subscribe to the YouTube, follow me. Let's spread positivity. Let's give some hope back to the world. And I'll see you next time. Peace. Dude, that was sick, man. You